Okay,
All right, ready?
I think so. Hi, guys. Welcome to the inaugural episode of the Harriet Center podcast. Not only is this the first Harriet Center podcast, it's also the inaugural episode for the Harriet Forum lecture series. And we have the most perfect interviewee here for today, Ron James. I say he's the most perfect because he is actually the president of the Harriet Forum committee currently. So let me just tell you a quick little bit about him and then we'll just jump into it. So Ron is a retired English and social studies teacher. He is an adjunct instructor for the East Asian history at ISU. Is that accurate still?
Yeah.
Okay, just making sure.
Yeah.
And he's a member of the Twin Falls County Historical Preservation Commission. He earned his bachelor's in history and secondary education with a minor in English and psychology in 1979. He later received his master's degree in anthropology from U of I with a special focus on historical archaeology of the 19th century Chinese gold mining sites. His MA thesis, Ruins of a World, Chinese Gold Mining at the Montung site in the Snake River Canyon, was published in 1993 as part of the Interior Department's Idaho Cultural Resource Series. He's done extensive archaeological and ethnographical research on the Chinese and Japanese immigration experience in Idaho. His interests also include the Astorians and the early Pacific Northwest fur trade period. During 2001 to 2004, he worked with the National Park Service with the establishment of the Minidoka National Historic Site in Jerome County and was a founding member of the Friends of Minidoka nonprofit organization. He lived and taught English in Shanghai during the summers of 2000 and 2001. In 2002, he was awarded Japan's version of a Fulbright scholarship to visit schools across Japan. In 2003, he returned to China, this time
It's pronounced shaman.
Fujian, China, located directly across from Taiwan, where he met and married his wife and lived until 2005. He and his wife, Lily, currently reside here in Twin Falls. So the title of the lecture that Ron will be presenting for us next month on May 13th is Flour, Gold, and Chinese Miners. This is an update on the National Register Snake River Canyon Historic Mining District Archaeological Surveys. So again, that lecture will be on May 13th. It starts at 7:30 p.m., but you guys can come in as early as 7 p.m. to find your seats. I think we'll get started with questions.
Okay, let's begin.
Okay, so right off the bat, how did you become interested in archaeology?
Well, I started out as a history major, okay? And then when I went to further my education and get a master's, my idea for original research was to come right back here in my backyard and investigate the Chinese gold mining activity that went on in the canyon in the 1870s. And it turns out that there's not a whole lot written about the Chinese in the historical records and the archives. And so archaeology is the study of people's material culture.
Okay.
And the archives and the historical records tend to be written from the perspective of the elite, the winners.
The current in power.
Yeah, and they leave out a lot. And for one thing is that the Chinese are barely mentioned, but yet you go down in the canyon and other places where you have extensive, I mean, they've completely altered the landscape. So at any rate, that's what I was persuaded to change my major from history to anthropology, and because I was going to be involved in field work in the canyon, because that's where the evidence for the Chinese really is. It's in the archaeology.
Okay.
And I'm really glad it worked out that way. I see anthropology as history is a subfield of anthropology, and anthropology is like a wide-angle lens. It just it expands your perspective.
Yeah.
From the library out to the field, and you get the whole full picture. So.
Very nice. So let's talk about this project specifically, the Historic Mining District surveys. How did you get involved with them?
Well, it goes back in 1989 when I excavated the Montung site. This was a site that had not just been abandoned and we just have their trash left behind. This was a site that when we opened it up and excavated, it turned out it was a time capsule. And the reason for that is because the occupant of the site was a Chinese merchant who was killed in a tragic accident. He went over Shoshone Falls, was killed. And then according to traditional Chinese funerary customs, the other Chinese miners burned his cabin down,
Oh, interesting.
okay, with everything in it, and then they just left it. Because to take anything, well, you could get ghost sickness.
Yeah.
Okay, and so anyway, that site right there was, because of its preservation and the artifacts and everything, it was significant, and I wanted to nominate it to the National Register. Well, in the meantime, State Historic Preservation Office, several years ago, took another look at the canyon and said, no, we need to do a district. You've got too much, you've got far more down here, which they're right. We have extensive Chinese. So the idea then became a much more ambitious historic district.
Okay.
And right now, the plan would be to have the district in the canyon between the Perrine and Hanson Bridge.
Very nice.
So that's what we're working on.
And so basically the survey just says this is the area, and then it gets approved as a historical area?
Yeah, see, I surveyed after the Montung excavation, then the Twin Falls County Historic Preservation Commission funded me, gave me some money to then survey the canyon. I started pretty much at the Murtaugh Bridge.
Okay.
And with a couple of friends, we worked our way, we went all the way to Shoshone Falls on weekends, spring break, and located where all the Chinese sites were and did just kind of a rough survey and recording. But for the historic mining district, now what we need to do is go back and update all that.
Okay.
See, and that's what the process is, updating my initial surveys, and now we're finding much more.
Yeah, taking
And,
another look. And so this question isn't on the list, but so you do the survey and you're like, this is the area that is part of the historic district, and what happens after it becomes a historic district? It's then protected?
It'll
Or-
be a National Register Historic Mining District. Now, all the sites in the canyon that we're currently targeting are on federal land. They're in the canyon, they're on BLM property, there's no private land involved in this.
Okay.
But yeah, it will give them a layer of protection, and because as this area continues to grow and develop, you know, we have these significant sites that need to be identified, recognized, and we need to protect them, because if we lose them, they're gone forever.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. So on this process, what resources, tools, and materials are you using to compile your notes and keep a track of everything? Do you have?
Well, I have the documentation initially. You know, my master's thesis was on the Montung site. It's a very in-depth, it's like a site report.
Okay.
I don't remember how many pages on the Montung site, and then we have survey information, you know, site forms. I've written up a couple of kind of narrative histories, and I'm continuing to update that. And then we have the data collected in the field. The recent survey we conducted last May, June, and then back again in November. We're now utilizing, you know, up-to-date, state-of-the-art techniques versus back in 1989. It's almost like it was another century, where, you know, I'm just using a compass and a map and trying to. Now you get precise. I mean, down to what? You're within 3 inches
Okay.
or whatever of locating these places, and then we're also being able to find. Far more. These sites are much more extensive than I initially documented.
Okay.
So that's what's exciting, is
That
the
sounds
extent
exciting.
of the Chinese mining activity. It goes beyond even what we initially thought it was, and it was impressive to start with. So.
So you're using maps and geographical tools to do the location.
Now we're even using, you know, we haven't used LiDAR, but we have used drones. We're hoping to use LiDAR when we get up under the Hanson Bridge.
Okay.
And I'll be talking a little bit about that in the presentation, about the techniques that we've used and hope to use in the future, if we can keep this project going.
Okay. And with the future, how do you stay current with the latest archaeological developments and tools? that are being used across the world, and how are you incorporating them into use in this site?
Well, I'm more the scholar and educator, so and I teach East Asian history, so I'm constantly reading and updating my studies as far as the Chinese American historical experience, the new works that are coming out to enrich my own knowledge.
Okay.
Okay. As for the actual field techniques, those are more or less in the hands of the contractor. We contracted, Twin Falls County Historic Preservation Commission, we contracted with Dr. Kenneth Cannon, the Cannon Heritage Consultants. They have extensive experience surveying Chinese railroad sites in North Idaho, or excuse me, northern Utah. And then in 1869, after the Transcontinental Railroad was completed, some of those Chinese came up here and were working in the canyon. So we have a direct link between the Chinese sites here and the railroad sites in northern Utah. So Dr. Cannon was perfect with his background, and then he brings in a team of 4 or 5 field technicians with all the latest in their gear, and they do very amazing. We get amazing results that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. So how does this work and research impact our local community? Why should residents of our area care about it?
Well, for example, the Chinese presence in the canyon is something that they were here in the 1870s, left around 1883, and they're gone.
Okay.
And but yet they were a very important part of our history. And it's a part of our history that needs to be held on to and preserved, because they altered the landscape in the canyon significantly, and they even had a presence up at Rock Creek, at the Rock Creek Trading Post, and but yet it kind of got buried.
Yeah.
And it's an important chapter in our history that needs to be brought out, and it also helps to show, this is one of the distinguishing marks of the West. The West is where the world came together. And it was Europe, Latin America, Hawaii, and East Asia all come together here in Idaho, California on the West Coast. And it's a remarkable cultural
Exchange.
complex and mosaic. And we were part of that. And I just think that we need to highlight that as an outstanding part of our history that we need to preserve and hopefully share then with our posterity. Yeah.
So you would say that the work that the Chinese miners did has an impact on the way we live life today because of the way they altered the landscape?
Yeah, they were very important in the early building of our economic infrastructure. For example, Herman Stricker is of course associated with the Rock Creek Stricker Trading Post south of Hanson.
Okay.
Originally Stricker was in the canyon. He came out in 1870, and then it was 1876 when he bought the trading post at Rock Creek. Essentially, the funds that he had to finance his purchase came from the Chinese miners.
Nice.
The Chinese completely dominated. After 1871, the mines in the canyon were predominantly Chinese. There were hundreds of in there. A few whites, but mostly Chinese. And so even Herman Stricker's ability to buy the Rock Creek store and establish himself was based on the Chinese being here.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and then they had their own building out there, probably what we call a huiguan, which would have been part of their whole social and economic. They had a very, very elaborate, which I'll again describe in a little more detail on the 13th, of this incredible support system that they had behind their migration and mining activities.
Okay.
And they were present here, and we're trying to provide a little more, connect the dots and provide a little more details. We have just a sketchy outline, but what we have is, I think, is really rather compelling, and it's typical of other Chinese communities in the West. So I feel like we have kind of a blank here that we need to fill in, that we too have a very, very important and interesting history here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that segues great into my last question on this topic. What can guests expect from your lecture on May 13th?
Well, I hope to provide an interesting and engaging, first I'm going to be giving some historical overview, archaeological overview of the sites. What do they look like? Why are they there? How did they get there? Who put them there? You know, so a history, an overview of the Chinese migration as a result of the California Gold Rush, which was then soon followed up by the gold rush in Idaho. Idaho's Chinese population was very large. It was second only to California.
Okay.
And so anyway, I'll be providing hopefully a little more information about the Chinese gold mining community that we had here in the 1870s. And then I'll also then provide kind of the overview of the vision we have for this Snake River Canyon Historic Mining District. And then also an update on the current difficulties that we're now facing to continue this project to fulfill it.
So off topic then, does your funding come federally or from the state?
We
Or private?
Well, we get Twin Falls County Historic Preservation Commission usually will get some grant money through the State Historic Preservation Office. But for this project, where we need additional funding, I was able to get generous support from like Idaho Heritage Trust,
Okay.
Preservation Twin Falls, and then I applied for and received a $25,000 America 250 in Idaho grant that was going to cover the survey at the Hanson Bridge with using LIDAR, and then that was abruptly pulled back, and so we're kind of got a cliffhanger here. You know, what's going to happen next? Are we able to keep going?
So if people have an interest in this, can they reach out to the Twin Falls Historical Commission and donate to them to help keep this project going?
It could be a possibility.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because we
Yeah.
can.
We're not going to be able to do, I don't think, a GoFundMe is, because all the money goes through Twin Falls County to pay back. So, but yeah, that's one thing we need to look at is if we're going to keep this going, we're going to have to locate some other funding sources.
Yeah,
Simple as
people
that.
have an interest. Okay, so I have two more questions that aren't specific to this project. The first one, what should someone do if they have something that they think would be of archaeological interest?
Well, first off, if they're out wherever in the field, the desert, and you find an object, whether it's an arrowhead, an opium can, leave it there. Don't pick it up and take it home. It's like at the Montung site that we excavated in '89. If that had been looted, okay, there would have been no information. But the fact that the site had not been looted, we were able to reconstruct magnificent detail and help put together a picture of life in the canyon involving the Chinese.
Okay.
And so I really emphasize, when you come across an artifact, please just leave it there. Don't disturb it, because there might be other stuff there, and removing anything takes it away from its context, and then all you have is just an arrowhead. There's no context, there's no story. As far as site features, if they find a site, whether it's going to be rock art, rock wall, whatever, yeah, I would encourage them to reach out and contact State Historical Society, contact the Twin Falls County Historic Preservation Commission, me, and let us know, and we can find out if the site has already been recorded, and if it's a new site, then we would certainly want to add it
To
to
the
the list. So.
Okay, and then my last question for you today, what advice would you give to community members and students who have an interest in archaeology and want to learn more and do more with it?
Well, I would encourage them to seek out whatever opportunities might be available through the Bureau of Land Management, the Forest Service, to maybe go out and volunteer or observe some of the, any field work that might be going on in their area.
Okay.
Maybe, take an anthropology class. That's a good way too to.
A lot of online options now for classes like that.
Yeah, there's various, courses,
exist.
and then again, seek out your local historical and archaeological organizations, because we're always in need of additional volunteers, support, and then we also enjoy occasionally providing public education opportunities. So any of those programs, lectures, whatever, just
Attending those.
yeah.
So our lecture in May will be for National Archaeology Month. And just a reminder for those of you listening and watching, that's going to be on May 13th at 7:30 p.m. The venue opens at 7 p.m. It's free to attend, and the title of Ron's lecture is Flour, Gold, and Chinese Miners, an update on the National Register Snake River Historic Mining District Archaeological Surveys. Ron, thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
It was great to have you.
Thank you, Emily.
Kick off our podcast series.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you guys can look forward to that. We'll be sending more information out about the lecture and doing some more advertisement across our social media. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.